And hello from Studio B. Welcome to our Christmas Eve show number 793. For the, you can say it, Julia. You're so proud of the date.
Oh, yes. 24.
No, it's not 24. It's 24, 12, 24, and you were so happy about that.
Yes, that's true.
You got all the guys in the Zoom are smiling. Here we go. We got Christopher and Clark, and Andrew stepped out for a glass of vino tinto. Ed Worley, welcome everybody to our special Christmas Eve show. We've got our panelists coming on via Zoom to talk about you know what, the Sailing Illustrated Yacht Racing Person of the Year, the inaugural such event. Alan Long is on from Chile, Mexico City, Ciudad de Mexico. What are you doing down there, Alan? David James across the bay saying, what a lovely boa, Julia.
Thank you very much.
It is. Is that fake? I hope that's not a real animal. We'll get canceled by some animal rights organization.
It is fake and it's washable.
Christopher Gillingham, I mentioned. Phil Laffin, Don Lunabos, Philip Laffin. Rick Bannerow, ho, 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 from I-287. He's driving to New Jersey to check on the drones, I guess. We'll do the panel discussion, the C block, but in the meantime, our distinguished panel will serve as co-hosts. So jump in, guys, if you want. There is Graham Sweeney in Shetland, in Scotland. Graham has joined us as well. These are our super FOSI we've invited to be on the panel, and others, people who are people who are regularly on the show, joining us on the panel today to discuss the nominees that you all have sent in for the inaugural Sailing Illustrated Person of the Year. Julia, let's check for a moment about our rest of our holiday schedule, as the Brits would say. Sailing Illustrated Yacht Racing Person of the Year in orange. So if you want to note what we're doing about that, today is the panel discussion. The panel is on. They're going to discuss the nominations. Then they are going to vote by email or by DM, direct message in the meantime, who of these nominees they want to select. And we're still open. If you really have a pressing nominee other than the ones we've already got in and you want to put it in today, that's fine too. Tomorrow is our Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race Watch Party. It's at 16:30 Pacific at 00:30, 30 minutes after midnight UTC, which is also London time this time of year. And it's 11:30 in Sydney, 30 minutes before the yacht race takes off. The start's at noon. We'll do our regular show on Friday at 1300 Pacific, 2100 UTC. And then New Year's Eve, Julia will do another show, and that will be the announcement of our inaugural yacht racing person of the year. We'll do that New Year's Eve. And for you and I, that'll be black tie, right?
Yep.
We're going to do black tie again?
Sure.
We haven't done that in a while.
No.
Because we haven't had New Year's Eve show in a while.
No.
But that's what we'll do. Okay, thanks everybody for joining us. It is the Sydney Hobart, Rolex Sydney Hobart. I love that they call it a yacht race.
Yes.
And it is tomorrow, which is Boxing Day. It's Christmas Day down under. It's Christmas Eve here, of course, in the States and Europe. And the Rolex the RSHYR. Love they call it the yacht race. The watch
Absolutely.
party tomorrow, as I said, 16:30 Pacific, 0030 UTC, so 30 minutes after midnight. And that's in Europe. And 11:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time tomorrow. Julia, what are we celebrating today? There is a hint behind that lower third. See if any of the Zoomers want to have a crack at it. What are we celebrating today, gentlemen? Any ideas from the Zoomers?
I'm just thinking what a great adventure it always is to be in the starting line of the Sydney Hobart. Whee!
There is what we're celebrating, obviously. Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2024, or if you're down under, Christmas Day. Merry Christmas to you all. There is a famous painting here in the States. Do you know that painting, Julia?
Nope.
From 1878, just 7 years after the first America's Cup. Christmas Eve by J. Hoover and Son. They were from Philadelphia, and be pre-photography when you made wood carvings and cuttings and then stamped stuff. Clark Chapin, you'd know what you would call that, right?
I was going to ask if the son's middle name was Edgar.
J. Edgar Hoover, who was the first chief of our famous Federal Bureau of Investigation. J. Hoover and Son in Philadelphia. Despite its Christian significance, there are a number of pagan and supernatural beliefs connected with Christmas Eve. I did not know that in Scandinavian countries, for example, it is believed that the dead revisit their former homes on Christmas Eve. People make sure that their parlors are tidy and that a good fire is burning before they go to bed. They often light candles, set the table, and leave out plenty of food for their ghostly visitors. They also make sure that the seats of their chairs have been dusted. When they get up in the morning, they wipe the chairs again with a clean white towel. If they find any dirt on the seat, it means that a relative, fresh from the grave, sat there during the night. Did you know that?
No.
I had being half Norwegian, or I had no idea either. Not a clue. Celebrating Christmas as a holiday became popular only in the 19th century, in the 1800s, at least in this country. Christmas Eve remains an important part of Christian culture and signifies the birth of Jesus, as you all know. And it has become even more popular within the last century thanks to a beloved icon,
Santa Claus.
Santa Claus. The idea of the jolly man in red gave rise to more traditions such as hanging stockings and leaving out cookies, milk, and sometimes carrots for his reindeer.
Yes. Well, they need.
Are we going to do stockings? You're coming down for dinner, Christmas dinner tomorrow, right?
Yep.
I think I'm going to cook ribs because it's easy, and I got to prepare tomorrow evening show, and I can put the ribs in and turn them on, and they'll cook themselves.
Yes.
With any luck. What else do we have to say about Christmas Eve, which we are celebrating today? Apart from Santa Claus and Christianity, Christmas Eve took on another significance. It also became a day made for spending time with family and loved ones over dinner, decorating, gift wrapping, Christmas-themed movies. Of course, the holiday unites families and friends, allowing them to get together and enjoy special traditional activities from Europe, North, Latin America, and even in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
You knew that.
Yes.
You, of course, knew that. Now, did you know any of this, which I didn't? In Estonia, Finland, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Hultumton, which is their Santa Claus, personally meets children and gives presents in the evening of Christmas Eve. I bet you Graham Sweeney knew that. And then in this long list of countries, Christmas presents are open mostly on the evening of the 24th, tonight, Christmas Eve, and following what is the German tradition. We did that when we lived those 10 years in Germany. Of course, Meg loved it because we do it. We do it Christmas Eve, and then we open more presents Christmas Day.
Morning.
And then when we moved to Spain, they opened their presents on the 12th day of Christmas, when the wise men got to,
which is
supposedly the 6th of January.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And I think this article, which I'm not going to read all of, says that indeed down the last paragraph. In Spain, gifts are traditionally opened. Okay, I didn't know that in other Latin American countries, people stay awake until midnight when they open the presents.
And they go to Mass. Midnight Mass.
Well, usually before that, I think.
Yeah.
But okay, there's our full. That's it. Now, how about Australia?
Saturnalia. What about that? Goes back a long way further.
Mr. Doctor, what country?
Well, the Romans celebrated Saturnalia. They made a festival that lasted anything between 3 and 19 days, and they all got up in funny clothes. And
Oh yeah.
the midwinter celebrations go back a hell of a lot further than Christianity.
Now, do you
Right.
know when Saturnalia starts officially? What day?
No, I mean it was around. I think everything was based around December the 21st, that being the shortest day and the middle of this winter solstice.
Well, you're close because we actually celebrated that last Tuesday, which would have been the 17th. We celebrated Saturnalia as what we were celebrating that day. So apropos that you brought that up, Mr. Dr.
Yes.
Andrew McIrvin in the Zoom panel, along with Graham Sweeney. And who else is in the panel? Christopher Gillingham in Livingston. Graham's up in Scotland. Clark Chapin in Plymouth, Michigan. Andrew McIrvin. You're in London, aren't you, Andrew?
Yeah, I am today.
And Ed Worley down. Actually, Ed's up here now. He's living near Sacramento. Where is it you're living, Ed?
Up in the foothills near Roseville on the way up to Lake Tahoe.
Oh, are
Nice.
you?
Well, welcome to NorCal. How long have you been up here?
Oh, for a while. It's a lot different. I miss Southern California. I miss the weather.
Yeah, but for a while, that could be, a couple weeks, or it could be a couple years, or a couple decades.
Couple years.
Okay. Because I always introduce you as being from SoCal. I didn't know that.
Well, that's where my heart is SoCal.
Well, welcome to the panelists. Jump in, and as Andrew did, jump in anytime, guys. You're all going to treat you as co-hosts today. We appreciate you coming on. Others probably will join us along the way. I know Alistair Murray wants to join us, but
It's his birthday.
Alistair's?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I think he just said that.
Okay, well, we wish him a happy birthday. I have, Julia's allowed me the budget for one.
Yes.
Do you call those, how do you pronounce this plant? Come on.
Can.
How do you pronounce it? Well, you're trying to think of the name. You're having a senior moment.
I am having a senior
How
moment.
do you pronounce that, Clark Chapin, that plant? Behind me.
Redmond.
Well, the question is how I pronounce it. The answer is poinsettia.
Yes.
Poinsettia.
Correct.
Who of the Zoomers pronounce it poinsettia? Graham does. Christopher does. Andrew, do you say poinsettia or poinsettia?
Neither.
No.
Yeah. No, points. It's poinsettia.
Poinsettia, I think, is what we'd say.
And Julia, do you say aluminum or aluminium?
Aluminum.
Yes. Okay, I get you guys on that. Okay, enough of this Christmas Eve stuff, but we've got to now get to Australia. How do we celebrate? How do they celebrate? We lived down there during the Cup in the late, was 87, 88, 85, 86. Christmas in Australia does not involve no ugly Christmas sweater. Number one. This from the Daily Mail this morning.
Yeah.
Number two, Christmas in Australia, the reindeer are on the beach.
That's lovely.
And number three, the shrimp are on the barbie. The Australians have seafood barbecue for their Christmas feast, whereas we have turkey or ham, or the Filipinos have a little goat on their table. Did you know that, Julia?
No.
I didn't either, but you checked with our Filipino bartender here at the Beach Street Yacht Club.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so much for Christmas Eve. Shrimp on the Barbie down in Oz. Welcome to all of you. We also are celebrating today, as always, our FOSI, especially our Super FOSI who are joining us. And those of you who are patrons, we appreciate very much your support year-round. We have Christmas cards coming in here, Julia. Here is the first one. That is from FOSI Baton Kennan, a.k.a. Baton Rouge on here. Baton Kennan has sent that. I have Christmas cards here on the back table from other FOSI. This, a Merry Christmas from the Sangmeister family down in Long Beach.
I love that picture.
Really nice. They John puts on that silly green hat there. He's on the left side. And the kids, the three boys, and they have just had their big fancy Christmas party that they host every year at their house. I couldn't go, unfortunately, because I was at another Christmas party. Far Yacht Design has sent a very nice card, as they do every year.
Mm-hmm.
to us. We appreciate that very much. And we have a Christmas present, Julia.
Oh, we do.
We have a Christmas present. Came in the mail last night, and it says on the box, mix tiles.
Oh,
Mix tiles, which are these items up
right.
here in the studio.
right.
And this came from Frederick. I didn't know Rick Bannerow's first name
You know,
is Frederick, my middle name. So I feel even closer to Rick Banner. I'm opening this up, and these mix tiles are really cool. They are foam backed, and you can send them your photos, and they stick your photos, which Rick has obviously done. Rick Banner has put them on, and that's what we have distributed here around the studio for soundproofing and for decoration, because the foam is actually pretty thick, and they're not too expensive. This company does this, send them out. I think there's 18 here in the box. I didn't count them. But on the back, for croutons like me who have trouble mounting anything, on the back is a magnet, and you strip the paper off the magnet and get it more or less where you want it. But if it's not perfect, when you stick the magnet onto the backing, onto the wall, you can move it around a little bit and get it more or less perfect.
This ad is paid for by.
Today's show is brought to you by Mix Tiles. Rick Bannerow, I don't know, but his photos, and they are cool.
Yes.
And there's, as I said, I think there's something like 18 in here. Julie, I don't know where we're going to put all of them. Maybe some more wall in here that needs to be, but it needs to be deadened. But
Softened, yeah.
the room tone in here is because of the monitors. It's because of being me surrounded by monitors, and Julia's got the control room door there next to you. Thank you, Rick Bannerow. Thanks to the Baton Rouge family in Charleston and the others that have sent through. And let's get going with the rest of our show. We're going to feature today the Person of the Year. We'll get to that in a minute with our panel. Again, panelists, let me stop there. Any of you want to jump in with anything? Graham Sweeney, how are you doing? Tell us how your Christmas Eve is going in Scotland.
It's very quiet. It's very mild up here. We got double figures. I mean, it's unusual.
11?
But yeah, we're
Does that mean 11
ourselves.
centigrade? Centigrade?
Yeah, no, it's about 14.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know, it's balmy. I was quite interested in hearing the traditions of the each country's different traditions, and I just make a quick one here. It's one we have in Shetland, which is very unheard of, and there's a tale of a man who went into the woods on Christmas Eve, and he heard some music, so he went looking for the music, and well, it wasn't woods because we don't have any woods. But he went looking for this music, and no, I was actually looking for a cow, I think, and the trolls had stolen a cow. And they said, well, stay, we're keeping the cow, but you can stay for the party. So he listened to the party, and they started playing the music on the violin, you know. And he got right into this, and he learned how to play this tune, and he started playing it for them. And the sun came up the next morning, and he found himself alone on the hill, and he went down to his house. And when he turned up, everyone was shocked because he'd been missing for an eon, you know, for about 100 years. And he was a person that had gone missing on the hills. And so everyone just looked at him and said, this isn't your house, and we don't know what you're doing here. And apparently he walked out the house and turned to dust. But before he turned to dust, he recounted the song that he was playing that night. And even today, it's a tradition on Christmas Day for this tune to be played. It's called A Day Dawn, and you can find it. You can find it on all the like Spotify's and Apple-y things and all that sort of stuff online, all the music chat things. But it's quite an interesting little like foible, and Shetland is full of these little things, and not all of them things that turn up are scary. They're quite nice little creatures that do you good, and so we believe in trolls or trowels. Yes.
Julia, I thought there was going to be a dirty punchline there, but this is Graham Sweeney, not Ted Ryman.
Yes.
Or Graham
Hold me back.
It's showing the Irish heritage.
Well, Graham, thank you for that. And there's all these interesting traditions that, the nice thing about this group, all of you, I mean, look at Peter Stevenson. He says, I've just finished peeling 2 kilograms of prawns. So he's getting ready for his barbecue today. I mean, it's Christmas Day down there.
Right.
Merry Christmas to all of you. Alan Long is prepping the boat for the RSHYR. Jonathan Shore in Newport, Rhode Island, saying Merry Christmas to everyone. Julie Ahrens in cloudy, cold Cleveland. Stingray quite likes Rick Bannerow's present to us, Julia.
I do too.
I do too, indeed. Merry Christmas. Tom Ogletree is saying Warren Schasser wishing us from Brisbane in Oz all a happy Christmas. Do you say happy Christmas in Australia or Merry Christmas? I know the Brits and most of the Europeans, you mostly say happy Christmas, right? We say Merry Christmas in the U.S.
Mm-mm.
Well, any nods? Anybody want to weigh in on that? That's it. Come on, we haven't heard from Christopher Gillingham.
I was just going to tell Graham I'm rather pleased that the smoked salmon I've got for tomorrow seems to come from Shetland. No doubt one of your fish farms, but even though it's from Shetland.
Very nice.
Well, I enjoy it because I have a fish farm just literally down the bottom of the hill here. And anything that comes out of my waste pipe goes down towards them. So enjoy it. I'll have an extra flush for you.
Oh, thank you.
Christopher Gillingham, what are you doing on your Christmas Eve?
I've done it. I've spent the afternoon peeling potatoes, doing the parsnips, doing the carrots. Everything is squared away. Parsnips are marinating in honey and mustard. So yeah, we're all looking pretty smart, pretty happy.
Are you having a hot toddy somewhere?
I am going to have a little rum and tonic later on.
Okay, good. Anna Bergqvist, who I think is in Sweden, says we say Merry Christmas. Ted Ryman is wishing us a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from down under in Africa.
Yeah,
and
very down under.
Lots of the other down under. Heidi Purcell, whom Clark Chapin knows, near him in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And Ted is also saying, my reputation precedes me. About 30 jokes. Okay, shall we carry on? Let's listen to John Emmett and his coaching corner. He sent in his report. John Emmett, get to the front of the fleet. The coaching corner with John. There's his theme music, and he is on the rocky, fairly windy Weymouth Beach.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the FOSI. I'm going to take you on one of my favourite walks along Chesil Beach. This is a historic part of the coastline, the Jurassic Coast, and it's actually what helps the topography of sailing to be such a fantastic venue at Weymouth, because it's behind me, just a very low beach, and it accelerates the water between the mainland and Portland. And yeah, it's not by accident that this venue was chosen as the Olympic sailing venue for that reason. And one of the things I wanted you to do is think of how to make the most of the weather, because everyone talks about the weather, nobody does anything about it. And there's always going to be those days when it's too light or too windy to get some useful time on the water. But first things first, if you haven't done already, share the live feed so others can join us live. In fact, maybe share just as the start of the show and we have that initial countdown, because that way people have a chance to log in and won't miss a thing. So as I take you for a little walk along the beach, I think this is a good way to spend the rest day. And one of the things I will try and do is look ahead, because proper planning prevents piss poor performance, or to put it in perhaps a more polite way, failure to plan is planning to fail. So we know there's going to be days that it's going to be more difficult to sail or highly unlikely to sail, especially if we're thinking about forward planning. That is, we don't want to get in a car and drive for 7 hours for a weekend that's not going to take place. So actually scheduling this as part of your rest day is something which is really important to do, because you know you might have that time forced upon you. And that's when I tend to do a lot of my admin, when I know that it's either going to be too windy or too light. And actually, either way, you can get ahead on the boat work. We're very lucky here. I don't think I've shown you before, but the Weymouth National Portland Sailing Academy, we have a massive hangar where you can bring your boat safely in and do work. In fact, I even once had my discs changed in my van in there when it was absolutely pouring with rain outside. But yeah, looking ahead is a really important part of any successful business or any successful enterprise. And in terms of sport, this is very much true. We talked about periodization of training, but sailing, because we have such varied conditions and so many variables, that this planning ahead becomes even more important. So really great to hear people talking about Long Beach, but actually the plans are already ahead for Australia, and especially coming from the UK, we refer to it affectionately as Down Under. That's literally the other side of the world. So quite a lot of flying to get there, and we want to make the most of any training camps, etc. that we do. And it's not just the financial side, you know, to really value your time with that massive amounts of potential jet lag. In fact, I find myself now when I'm planning flights trying to do it so that I'm not in a queue to go on an aeroplane. So I'm at least joining the show from a lounge or whatnot, because once again, I think the live part of the show is just something very, very special. But pretty windy day here today. Made me think we have a lot of storms coming through this time of year in the UK. So I think I'm gonna head back to my nice warm flat and do a little bit of video editing that I've had stacked up over the past few days. Hope to see you all on the show. Comments very welcome, even in replay.
Nice stuff from John Emmett.
Yep.
John Emmett sailing, get to the front of the fleet. And you could hear him crunching on those
I was going
stones.
to say I'm proud of him walking subtly.
He did a good job. He does a good job. That's such an art, really, more than a science. John Emmett, again, thank you very much for your regular reportage. We got people checking in with us. Ken Sabin in Toledo, Ohio, on the western end of Lake Erie. John Schaefer, I just got done sitting on a frozen lake watching a bobber, obviously a fishing bobber. It's better than being in a kitchen with a bunch of haggling hens. Julia,
I know.
that's a finger wag if I ever haggling hens.
is.
And thanks to the white Russians, Caucasians, he's feeling no cold, no stingray, Pip Hare. We do have a report on Pip Hare. She's closing in on Melbourne, but tough. I've got an article there was an article in the Telegraph. Did any of you in the UK see the article on Pip in the Telegraph, either yesterday or today?
Yeah.
Great article, wasn't it? Very poignant. She's
Yeah, it was good actually to see the national press take any notice of sailing at all. So Pip has caught the imagination, and I mean the poor girl. She's gone through hell, but still, you know, all the build up to get where she got, and it was very close at one point because Medallia partly pulled out, and she had no money, but she made it, and she always delivers the most fantastic, emotional, real videos and performance, and she's gone on doing that despite the fact that her rig's fallen down. And she's talking us back to Australia.
to Melbourne, yeah.
She's a remarkable lady.
Yeah, I commend it. If those of you can get it online, go to the Telegraph, whatever it is, .co.uk. I don't know what their URL is, but the Telegraph newspaper, and there's just Google it, and Pip Hare pops in the news sec, pops right up, and it's a great article. I really enjoyed it very much indeed. Claire Harrington is checking in. She wants to know, come on the Zoom, Claire. Anybody else that wants to come on the Zoom, especially the Super FOSI, those of you who are on the show regularly, that's who we invited to join, including Claire. 267-220-6570 is our regular meeting ID. Passcode is 1851. As usual, we don't change that because we never have people trolling us, Julia.
Yes, and we remember a date.
Well, that's right. And I'm too croutonic and too old now to try to change numbers and passcodes and passwords. I can't do it. We are going to do our Yacht Racing Person of the Year discussion with our esteemed panel here in the C Block. Let's carry on here next and do the Vendée Globe reportage. The 10th edition of that race is already into day 44. It's hard to believe, Julia,
Wow.
44 days. But incredibly, the lead yacht, we're going to talk about that now, has passed the Corn, as Kayard calls it, the Cape Horn, and lopping nearly 4 days, I think it is, off the record. So they're now ahead of that record, having gone very quickly. At least a couple leaders, Charlie Delan and this guy, Jan Richaume, have gone very quickly, record speed from Ted Ryman in South Africa, that Cape, Good Hope, to Cape Horn. So it's astonishing what is going on. Here is a picture. I love this picture of, they send a helicopter, they send people down there to the tip, and they get a helicopter and they take pictures. I don't know who took this picture, but the corn has been cooked. And there it is, the corn, Don Lunabos is saying. It's a Cape Horn Christmas cracker for leader Richaume. When he crossed Cape Horn as the narrowest of narrow leaders, he's only like I think he was 9 minutes ahead, but he's only 4 miles or so ahead. At the narrowest of narrow leaders at the head of the 36 strong, 4 people have withdrawn now, strong Vendée Globe fleet at 23:27 and change UTC Monday night. Jan Richaume set 2 new records for the solo round the world course that he smashed. Armel, how do you say it in French, guys? Who's a good francophone? Andrew, how do you say it?
Armel Leclerc.
Leclerc. Finally, an authoritative.
It's a Breton name. It's quite difficult. They pronounce them in it should be a Celtic pronunciation, but they're sometimes different.
Say it one more time.
Armel Leclerc, I think, but I may be wrong.
Well, more or less like it's spelled. That's good.
Armel.
So there is he's ahead of that 2016 record, 47 days, 0 hours. And it's just astonishing how quickly they are going across the planet, around the planet, single-handed. And he slashed 4 days, 10 hours, and 4 minutes off that record from Cape Leeuwin in the southwest corner of Australia to Cape Horn. The Corn. And Richaume's new record for the race is 13 days, 9, for this leg of the race, 13 days, 9 hours, 13 minutes, and change. Bravo Zulu. I mean, it's just amazing. Here he is. Apparently, somebody said, I put that on my Facebook page this morning. Somebody said, it looks like he's trying to catch South American flies. Today's leader. He has taken the lead from Charlie Delan, leader Jan Richaume, at the Corn, as Kayard calls it. And here is Matt Sheehan's reportage from this morning.
At 11:30 BC, Jan Richaume passed the notorious Cape Horn. In doing so, he not only confirmed his position as the current leader of the Vendée Globe, but has smashed the previous course record by more than 3.5 days. His closest competitor, Charlie Delan, rounded just 9 minutes and 30 seconds behind him. Delan had been here before during the last race, but then he passed in darkness. For Richaume, it was his first time, and as you might expect, he was pretty pleased.
On a fait le Cap Horn, quoi. En tête. Un truc de malade. La remontada, quoi. Au La Louine, j'avais 24 heures de retard. Et là, je passe à quelques minutes d'avance. C'est génial. Trop bien ce Tour du Monde. Toi, il n'y a plus qu'à rentrer. Wow. Encore 3 bonnes semaines pour remonter là. C'est une belle bagarre avec Charlie. Pas évidente bien sûr, hein. Jamais facile contre Charlie. Il va être à son avantage, mais on va rien lâcher. Ça c'est sûr. Oh, je profite du moment, c'est trop beau. Là c'est toute l'île de Horn là derrière. Après c'est les autres îles là. Derrière c'est Ushuaia. Excellent.
Even though the two boats were close when they passed Cape Horn, 9 hours later, and Richarm had stretched his lead to 8 miles. But neither will be taking anything for granted. The passage up the Atlantic has plenty of hurdles, where huge leading margins have been reduced to nothing in the past.
Nice report. Nice report.
I like the word génial. It doesn't really mean amazing. It means a lot more than that. It means it's sort of kind, lovely. You know, it's a nice French word.
Congenial.
Where did you learn French, Andrew?
My grandmother's French, but she never spoke French to me, which wasn't very helpful. And my father was bilingual, and he very rarely spoke French, and I've been struggling to speak it ever since, but I can get by.
Do any of the others of you? I mean, a lot of Brits speak French, right? You take it as a kid, the way here in the States we take Spanish as kids. Do you speak French,
Yeah.
Graham?
School French is terrible.
I don't speak French, but it seems the more wine I drink, I understand it better.
Very true.
Yes.
Christopher, do you speak French?
Un peu.
He's muted.
Un peu. So a very small amount, and none of it particularly good.
My wife is from Montreal and English family, Wilson, but they all spoke French growing up, street French as kids growing up. So that was okay, but I
Canadian French is incomprehensible to everybody.
Exactly. And of course, we say here in the States, when people have had, Graham, have had a couple of extra pops, a couple of wines too many, that they're speaking Welsh.
We say that too.
We had a breakfast. And of course, we're not going to try to speak Swedish. Nice reports. Richaume, let's go back to the Vendée Globe. Richaume certainly owes part of his record to the electric pace forced on him by his closest rival, Charlie Delano. It's astonishing. He was only 9 minutes behind when they went past the Cape, the longitude, I guess, is how they measure that. And of course, Charlie Delano is on Massive Santé Prévoyance, who passed the horn only 9 minutes and 30 seconds behind. Both blessed by a Pacific, which really opened up ahead of them in terms of favorable winds and wave patterns. Having passed both capes of the course in front, it was clearly a source of some chagrin, speaking of French words, to be denied the hat trick by his nemesis, Richaume. Nice stuff. This is Patrick Ikea. Is that how you say that? Skipper was ecstatic to pass so close to the Cape as you just saw in that video on his first ever passage. So cool. What an absolutely amazing moment. So much excitement to pass the horn. I never imagined. Oh, the French are wonderful. So expressive and so happy. Speaking of expressive and happy people, do you know who that is, Julia?
No.
Gentlemen, do you know who that is? Any of you? Graham?
That's Sam Goodchild.
Well done, Christopher Gillingham. That is Sam Goodchild. As he is in 8th place, so he's doing pretty well. He's got his ugly Christmas sweater on the yacht. Good for him.
Aged.
And do you know who this is?
That's my good friend Santa.
That's Romain Attanasio from France, and he is in 5th.
He's got all dressed up.
Huh?
Yeah. In costume.
Pretty good. They were the only two I could find. I'm sure there were others. And we'll see Pip Hare's report in a minute, which is not quite as joyful, but what great stuff that's going on. Here are the standings, the top 20 anyway. Not much change, except, as you know, in the first and second have swapped. Sebastian's dropped back now to 611 miles back there on that chart. Good charts these are. And then the rest of that 10 has not changed much, if at all, since a week ago. We didn't do a show last Friday, but since our show a week ago. And then the 10th, 11th through 20th, Justine Matreau, she's still leading the women's pack there on 11th, 12th, and 13th of Justine, Clarice, and Samantha. And then the rest of the gang down to...
She made a big leap. She came right through that lot. She gained hundreds of miles suddenly.
Who is that?
Justine.
Well, she's been in 11th place. If she's closed up on weather systems, she's been in 11th place more or less, Andrew, I think, since we've been following.
I thought she jumped forward quite a lot, but Perhaps I misread it.
Yeah, maybe not in position, maybe in miles.
Yeah.
But she's there. She and Clarice Kremer and Samantha Davies have been in those positions, I think, for a while. We've been the last three times we've done a report. Jean Lecombe, the veteran, is in 17th. And then we go through Conrad Coleman, who is the Aussie and American.
New Zealand.
Sorry, New Zealand. Oh, I insulted him.
Oh, you're in trouble.
Oh, I am in trouble. Conrad Coleman, who's a Kiwi, living now in Colorado when he's not out yacht racing, is in 30th. 4 teams have dropped out. 4 teams, including Pip Hare, who we covered extensively last time with her dropped rig, and she's making her way originally pretty quickly, Julia. We talked about that. She's making pretty fast progress toward Melbourne, toward Alistair Murray and the gang there. And apparently she's got great support, great backup, and help awaiting her in Melbourne. This is the article from the Telegraph, the photo. And this photo is not from today or yesterday. It's soon after she dropped her rig. And the headline, Pip Hare, I'm alone in the ocean at Christmas, hundreds of miles from land on a boat with no mast. My emotions have been in turmoil since my mast snapped, but as I inch back towards land, I am determined, get this, I'm determined to attempt Vendée Globe again. So bravo Zulu to her. And if you're interested in the geography of all that, there she is in the red dot where she dropped her rig 700 miles from land. And that was, a week ago. And there is her current position. She's luckily the breeze has been mostly out of the west and out of the south. And she's working her way toward Melbourne to the west of Tasmania.
I try to imagine myself saying, oh, good morning. You are 900 miles from anywhere and you have no sail. Good luck, babe.
She's actually, I think, correct me guys if I'm wrong, but I think she's corrected her jury rig. I see the Vice Commodore of the New York Yacht Club has joined us, Claire Harrington, down there on the bottom of our grid. Welcome, Claire. Have you been following this at all?
I have. I've been on since the beginning. Well, listening from the beginning. I was feeling a little hurt. I thought you didn't want me, but I'm glad to be here.
No, I sent you a note. Did you not get the note I sent you last night?
I did not.
Well, you probably didn't look at your Facebook messaging because I think I sent a group.
Probably not.
This gang, I don't have email for everybody. We got to do an email list for everybody. So Claire, I'm sorry, I sent it out on the email on the Facebook messaging. So
no worries. I never look at that, but what are you gonna
add that to the front of your phone. I had to put it on the front of mine because I get more messages now from the gang, from the FOSI and others on Facebook messaging than even email or texting or whatever. So Larry Kennedy checking in from Long Island. Happy Christmas, love to all. Stingray saying with that tiny jury rig, I think she's just got a little bit of her boom stuck in the mast base, and she's got a storm jib or something. Guys, do you know, or gals, do you know? Will the good people of Melbourne be able to hear Pip even before they can see her? Do you know about her jury rig, any of you?
No. I think she added a second sail to the original storm jib that she had up, and that improved her performance a bit anyway. So
she went
like a good racing sailor. She's always working at how to get a little more speed out. And obviously, the effect on her handicap isn't a consideration.
I think she used the outrigger, didn't she, as the mast?
The outrigger, her
she used one of the outriggers as the mast, and then put one of her smaller jibs
and just flipped it up vertically. Left it in. Oh, that's clever. I guess
I hear she cut the head off one of the jibs to use it because the ones she had, obviously they're massive, and because they haven't got a rig to haul it up to the top, so just cut the bits she needed and attach that back to front, so that it's now on the out prodders, one of the out prodders.
Well, Don Lunebo says she's making 7.5 knots, and Anna Bergqvist in Sweden is saying she showed a video of how she made it. So, yeah, there are so many. There's, as I say, there's just a fire hose of media coming off those boats, Julia. It's astonishing.
I haven't read that every day.
And I try to look at it not every day, but every other day. But good stuff. Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for the updates, everybody. And somebody else want to say something? I see David James is coming on. And I try to look at it not every day, but every other day. But good stuff. Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for the updates, everybody. And there's somebody's got their phone on and they're hearing me. David James. 13 seconds later, David, you got to cut your mic, please. I think that's David. Okay, let's carry on here to this panel discussion that we've been promising you. Hearing me. Somebody's got their phone on. I've turned it off. David, is that you? I think that's David. Okay. Turn your audio off, David, please. Somebody had me coming through. Maybe it was one. Yeah, that's good. Thank you very much. You got to stay muted. Otherwise, the audio is coming through to you sometimes 10, 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds later as we get to our inaugural 2024 Yacht Racing Person of the Year. You all thought this was a pretty good idea. Yes, we are mimicking what Time Magazine has been doing later for as we get to our decades in this country. Again, there's somebody with their mic open. And they're listening to me gas bag along, so I've cut your audio for the second until you get yourself sorted. And I have criteria thanks to Alistair Murray. And he's just codified what we have been talking about on the shows, the last three shows. And he's saying that the person of the year, the yacht racing person of the year, should demonstrate good character, and be an exemplary example for our sport. Someone who has done the most or among the most to raise the profile of sailing, I would say yacht racing specifically. Someone who has worked the hardest for yacht racing's benefit, okay? Someone who has achieved the most challenging goals, that's a good one as well. Someone who is a trailblazer, has achieved a first. Someone who has done the most to represent a worthy cause of, or furthered the cause of, say, women in sailing, youth in sailing, people with disabilities, different ethnic groups, etc. This criteria is suggested by Alistair Murray. Let's go to the panel and get your thoughts on Alistair's suggested criteria. Who wants to start? Clark, you give it a thumbs up. Do you like it, Clark?
Yeah, I think it gives an idea of a broad spectrum, and that's what we need because it's a very broad spectrum sport. The one question I do have is, are we going to have a separate man and woman yachts person of the year or just one?
We're going to ask that question of you all in a moment. Let's stick on the criteria. Thank you, Clark Chapin. Ed Worley, you've not had a lot to say today, but it was nice to have a cup of coffee with you the other night at the St. Fancy.
Yes, that was wonderful.
That was good fun catching up with you. And first time we've met in, maybe not, but the first time we've been together in person in, what, 30 years, 20 years?
10 years, 10 years, something like that, yeah. So, I like the criteria a lot. I like its broad spectrum. I like that it talks about achieving goals and working for sailing benefit. And the best thing I like is about the good character.
Yeah.
Somebody just is doing it. I'm a big Corinthian sailor. I don't like the commercialization as much. I want somebody who's doing it for the sport.
Well, to that point, Alistair had another one in here that I didn't, when I was cutting and pasting, in part because I was lazy, but in part because I didn't want to get into that discussion. It was somebody who was doing it as a Corinthian or not getting paid a lot. And I said, well, maybe if there might be somebody who's a professional who's really done it. So maybe it's somebody who's a complete volunteer, like the Yacht Club volunteers that John Emmett and others of you suggested in your nominations. So I, Ed, would like to keep that open. I'd actually like to have as few criteria as possible, because somebody might pop up that's done something great for yacht racing who doesn't fit all these criteria or most of them that closely. And you all as panelists decide that's the person, ding, 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 anyway. So let's keep it fairly, if you like this as a collection of criteria, let's keep it as open, as liberal, as open as possible, at least going forward. Rick Bannerow is saying, well, at least that's going to qualify the former non-sailing CEO of U.S. Yes, we wouldn't consider him, I don't think. Claire, how do you like the criteria?
Oh, I think it's a great start. Very comprehensive. It checks a lot of boxes. It's to meet all those requirements. That's a very high bar. But if we can identify someone who has, has met even 80% of them, I think that's a very, very good candidate.
Good. Okay, who's next? Andrew, Mr. Doctor, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's an amazingly broad spectrum, which is possibly impossible for any individual to complete. But it's a very good start, and it's a good idea to have try and get all those qualities. Pretty difficult, but I think there are one or two or even three people I can think of who come into most of those criteria, and I think it's a very good framework, and I applaud Alistair for doing it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Christopher, are you happy with this criteria? Not that anybody would, not that somebody would necessarily meet each of these criteria. What is it, the Latin criterion? This is the singular? Come on, Julia.
No, it's just criteria.
Huh? Come on, gang, what's the plural of
criterion and criteria? It's
criteria.
Criteria is plural, criterion, or ION?
Mm.
ION, yeah.
Okay, good. See, Julia? A Michigander got that better than a Stanfordite. Christopher Gillingham?
It certainly gives, it gives a broad spectrum, doesn't it, of what we're looking at. And I'd sort of something a little bit similar to that earlier on today when I thought, well, frankly, we're doing this, better come up with some proper ideas. So, yeah, I think it's a good criteria to work from. Good.
Okay, good. Graham, are you happy with it?
From the moment you spoke to me about this, Tom, I've been thinking hard and long and hard about this. And I have found it probably one of the hardest things to do. I think we have such a beautiful sport, such fantastic people in our sport. We have some really good people coming through, male and female. And to make this decision is going to probably be one of the toughest things I know I will ever have to do. And probably
I think we have
most of the people here. Such fantastic people in our sport. We have. So I'm finding it very, very difficult, and I think the criteria is absolutely bang on.
Okay.
But to actually make this decision singularly, I think it's going to be one of the hardest things.
Well, that's why we have a panel. David James from across the bridge in Sausalito, St. Francis Yacht Club member, Royal Hong Kong member, and a San Francisco Yacht Club member. He sat in, Julia, over there at your table.
Indeed,
for
he
you
did.
a couple times back in the day. Welcome, David. What's your thinking on the criteria?
Well,
We can hear you. Go ahead.
I think the criteria are correct. I have a difficulty with the gender thing. If you look at like college sailing, there's essentially no difference between boys sailing and girls sailing. So I don't understand why we would distinguish between the two, although maybe later it changes, but
Okay, well, that's a good segue into that topic in a second. Julia, you got a thought. I can see across the studio here when Julia starts she gets antsy, and I know she wants to say something. You like the criteria, first of all.
Oh, yes. And I think when you get down to it, you will make the decision anyway, without counting all those things, because they're looking for someone who has in fact moved the sport and in the last year. So all of them have one way or the other.
Okay. Now we've got another nomination. Ted Ryman is nominating Sir Ben Ainsley. And are there any other nominations?
Julie Aaron.
I've got Julie Aaron's nominations. Let's go to the nominations. I think we've gone. Claire, did you want to say anything else about the criteria? I think you weighed in.
Yes. Well, let me say a couple of things. Number one, I'm assuming that this identification of the Sailing Yachts Person of the Year is not a one and done. This is for, I'm assuming that this is someone who has made an impact in the year 2024. And hopefully you'll do this again next year and there'll be a new person, rather like the Yachts Person of the Year, the Rolex and the America's Cup Hall of Fame, those kinds of things that are ongoing. And in the next several years, you'll have a battery of people who have contributed to the sport in one way or another. I am not in favor, sorry?
Go ahead.
I am not in favor of a man and a woman. I just think it should be, I'm kind of a hard hat that way.
Yeah.
I just think it should be one person,
Okay,
man,
well,
woman.
I will take that up in a second. And
Yep.
Julia at least agrees with you, and maybe more. A couple other thank you for that, Claire. And Pedro Foiling Sailor, whom you all know, Peter Stevenson down in Sydney, is saying there should be 3 winners, female, male, and senior over 90, who still sails. He wants to nominate Gordon Ingate. Well, let's add Gordon Ingate to our list. Baton Rouge thinks Grant Dalton. We've got him. We're going to go to our nominees in a sec. But Baton Rouge joining the list for Grant Dalton. But I certainly, if you all agree, I would endorse the suggestion that Claire has just made, Julia, that it would be not just this year. We're particularly looking at this year, like Time Magazine does. Who has done something significantly good? And we're not talking about bad. We don't want Hitler or Stalin or some other crouton that Time Magazine has
Maybe
picked
he was a
up.
good sailor.
But somebody who has done a fantastic job for our sport this year, but taking into account perhaps their good behavior and good contributions in the past. I think that's a really good suggestion, Claire. The rest of the panel, nod or thumbs up, thumbs down if you agree.
Yep.
Have you got a full list of nominees, or are we adding any?
You'd think poorly of me, Andrew, if I didn't. Huh?
No, I'm asking whether I can add anybody.
Yeah, of course you can. And we've added at least, Alan Long agrees with Claire. Larry Kennedy says it's got to be a sailor. Well, I think that's implicit. So we've added, I think, Gordon Ingate, and we've added, not Captain Cook. He hasn't done anything this year that I know of, Stingray. Joshua Slocum. Maybe down the road we can do some posthumous, but I think we've added Sir Ben and Gordon Ingate.
I'd like to add Hap Fouth.
Hap Fouth. What a nice idea. Okay, I better get my notepad out here, Julia.
Yes.
Because we got 3 additional nominees, which I actually talked with Alistair about, that this might come up, which is why I didn't push this. I wanted to keep getting this discussion now, having this discussion now, so that we could maybe tweak things and add some things and still be able to make an announcement on New Year's Eve. So I'm adding Hap Fouth, Sir Ben Ainslie, and Wingnut, a.k.a.
I'd put Ben in at the beginning, actually, as well.
Okay. Wingnut, meaning Gordon Ingate, who I've sailed a lot of miles with Gordon. In the New York Yacht Club cruise, Claire, did you know that?
No kidding.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Gordon Ingate, who is next time you see George and Claire Ferguson, next time you see George Carmody.
Yeah.
And his wife,
Judy,
George and Judy Carmody, tell them that we were all speaking kindly, or at least some of us were, of Gordon Ingate.
I was just on the phone with him a day or two ago.
Well, they're dear friends, and I got to sail with Gordon because of the New York Yacht Club cruise. He'd come up and sail with us on the New York 40 back in the day, and it was good fun. Jonathan Frank, Julia.
Yes.
You want to read that?
Yeah. Larry Ellison, Sail GP, has done a fantastic job of promoting the sport.
I discussed him when we talked about this earlier. I put the notion forward that maybe Larry Ellison was somebody whom somebody would nominate.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to put him forward, but let's do that. Larry Ellison.
Popeye?
And certainly you got to put Russell Coots along with Larry if you're going to do
Yeah.
that. And by the way,
Okay.
one other thing I was thinking about here, gang, is that if you are going to award this to Yacht Club volunteers as a class, that's okay with me. I think that's a good idea. But we could also award it, for example, to a duo or a triumvirate, a trio of a Larry Ellison, Russell Coots, and tell me who, if you thought there was a tight-knit group of people who had done something hugely significant. But again, Time Magazine has done that. They've taken a group of people. I think we have a nomination from Ed Worley for Dawn Riley. Is that right, Ed?
Yes.
He's nodding his head.
No, yeah, yes. Good idea.
And it is a good idea. Dawn has done great stuff for our sport for many years, not just this year.
Right.
In my opinion. Blake Middleton is adding Cole Brower. Well, let's get to it. I didn't mean to drag this out. I wanted to do the criteria first. And so that Andrew doesn't think poorly of me, I do have the list of those who have been nominated heretofore. Emmett nominated Yacht Club Volunteers as a group. Hannah Stodel, he also nominated. She is the World Sailing staff member for parasailing. And John, as you all know, thinks that is really important that we continue to push for parasailing into not 2028 because that's behind us now, but to get parasailing into the 2032 Olympics, hence his nomination of Hannah Stodel on the staff of World Sailing, whom he thinks is doing a terrific job. Cole Brower, a number of you have nominated her, including John Lammerts Van Buren. Certainly I was strongly, and Julia, you were also a big proponent of Cole Brower.
Yes.
Christopher Gillingham, who is on our panel here today, he said earlier, Jimmy Spithill. We're going to go back and discuss these in a moment. Christopher, are you still liking Jimmy Spithill? Got a thumb up on that. Ian Williams, Andrew McIrvin, you put him forward. You still happy with Ian as a...
Yep, very much so.
Okay, good. And Pete Burling, Greg Normand, who's not on, but is from the Great Lakes area. Clark, you know him well. He put forward Pete Burling, I think a super, obviously, sadly didn't get as much recognition probably this year in the Rolex stuff because the Olympians did rather than, the guy who's won the cup now 3 times.
I know.
How many, Claire, how many other people have won the cup 3 times?
Individual? I don't know, but there's
Helmsman, skipper.
Right. Yeah. There's a long-standing winning streak in there somewhere.
3 people that I'm aware of now. And the first one was Charlie Barr, who was the Scot, who won it 3 times back at the turn of the last century, became a naturalized American, and I think he won it 3 times. Then in the 30s, you had Commodore Vanderbilt won it in 30, 34, and 37. I'm doing this from memory, so I could be completely off base here, everybody. Where's Gary Jobson when you need him? Commodore Vanderbilt won it 3 times, Claire, and now we've got Pete Burling, who's won it 3 times. How many times has Russell Coots won it as the skipper, as the helm?
1, maybe.
Won it in 95, and then again in 2000.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right? But he didn't not know 3. And when we won it with Stingray's favorite yacht, the Trimaran, Russell was the team leader, not on the yacht.
It was that guy from San Diego did quite well.
He won in 95 in San Diego. That was his first win, Russell did.
No, I'm doing Dennis must have won it more than once.
Dennis Connors won it twice as a skipper and one more time. He won it in 1980 on Liberty as a skipper. Lost it in 83, won it back in 83, and then won it in 88. So you're right. He was the skipper on the Catamaran in 88 against the big boat. So he's won it 3 times. Good point. Well done. And he's actually won it a 4th time on the crew, which is pretty remarkable. He was the starting helmsman / strategist, I think, in the 74 Cup for Ted Hood. Is that right, Claire? You would remember that. Claire wasn't even born then. Huh?
Not even a thought.
Claire wasn't even born then. Jonathan Frank is nominating at the last minute Jody Shields.
There we go. There we go.
Jody Shield. Ed Worley's confirming Vanderbilt Connor. They want to nominate. Jonathan also wants to nominate Shirley Robertson. Those are all good names. I'm going to write them all down.
Mhm.
Shirley Robertson, she's done great media work of late, besides being a 2-time medalist. And I don't think Jonathan Frank was entirely serious about Jody Shields. Stingray loves Lisa Darmanin. I think he's got a soft spot in her heart. We won't tell your partner, Stingray, about that. David James likes John Kostecki, having won the Star Worlds. Again, you guys are going back to the Rolex mode. I'm trying to keep this more of a contribution to the sport, massive impact on the sport, something that you've done this year. And JK, I love him to death and is a dear friend, David, but I don't think he's made a massive contribution to the sport aside from winning the Star Worlds. And I was sad to say, Julie, you and I were talking about this. Austin Sperry, his crew, has been nominated by the U.S. Sailing for Yachtsman of the Yachtsman. They also have a Yachtswoman of the Year, Rolex Yachtsman of the Year. But they didn't. They nominated Austin Sperry, his crew, but did not nominate John Kostecki.
Yeah, they probably figured he's had enough honors.
Crutonic. U.S. Sailing is Crutonic once again. Okay, we're talking about massive contribution to the sport.
Kostecki is the first person to achieve the quadruple.
Well, the trio anyway. He's won the round the world race. He's won the round the world race. He's won the America's Cup with us in 2010, and he's won an Olympic medal in Busan in '88. Okay, well, we've got this list and a few others. But again, we're talking about people who've made a major contribution this year. I got half health written down here. So there's the list. And who would like to be, before we get into that list, let's address the question. You'll see I have a lower third here. You'll be pleased. Just one person or one male and one female, because that was suggested by, among others, Peter Stevenson, that we should do. And John Emmett also thinks we should do. I know he's not on here now because he's got family obligations. Mark Holland. Hello, Mark. He wants to add the ESPN announcers for their massive contribution to the sport for the description of maneuvers.
Yes.
Oh, man, you guys. Okay, so there's our list. Let's address this first hot potato. Just one person or one male and one female? Kimball Livingston is on. He's saying U.S. Sailing nominations for 1 year's accomplishments only, and for what it's worth, Austin Sperry was really the person who drove the program while J.K. drove the boat. Okay, Kimball, thank you for that clarification. Let's start with you, Julia. Do you think we should have one person like Time Magazine Person of the Year, or do you think we should have one male, one female?
I must say that the first person that came to me, because I was thinking about bringing sailing and its virtues to the world, as Colvar.
Do you think we should have one person or a male and a female? There we go. Trying to put Julia, get her, she's on the fence. You were nodding your head yes when Commodore Harrington said, yeah, we should just have a person.
Yeah, I'd rather have a person.
Okay, let me ask the panel, who of the panel, thumbs up, think we should have one person? One person, either male or female. I got thumbs up from Christopher, Ed, Claire. David, is your thumb up or your vape? You can give your vape your thumbs up. Graham Sweeney, is your thumb up for one person or two people? Down. He wants two people. Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin, down. He wants two people, a male and a female. And I know that Andrew Pindar, who is not on here, he wants two people, a male and a female.
Colosseum.
Christopher Gillingham?
How many Rolexes do you have as prizes before we start?
Actually, we do have a watch.
We do?
A couple of Timexes.
We do have a watch back here in the back, on the back table. I could dig it up, but it'll take too long. Plus, it will show you the mess I have that I keep out of the shot. Otherwise, I keep the set fairly clear, but only from the shot up. I have a watch that that Alistair Murray gave us. That's a Ronstadt watch. So we could make fun of Rolex, I suppose, and give the Ronstadt watch to the winner.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking of something a little more dignified.
Don't mess with Rolex.
Don't mess with Rolex. Exactly. Our most famously good favorite sponsor.
Right.
Okay, we got to resolve this. Julia, I agree with you. And I think if I have a casting vote in this, I feel that we should have one person of the year. And maybe in future years, if we find it too difficult and we want to expand it, we can go to two people. But I would, gang, if you're all okay with that, I would prefer to just do one person this year. And I think there's a good chance it could be a female this year, too. So are you okay with that, gang?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Graham, you're not too happy, but...
Well, I am happy with it. But the more, like I say, the more I think about it, the more it messes up in my head. So maybe I shouldn't think it too much. I mean, when you said male or female, there was that moment when I kind of felt, you know what, this isn't a sexist thing. This is our sport. And then I thought to myself, women do struggle in our sport, so maybe we should recognise their achievement as well. And then I thought to myself, no, that's being sexist too. So I kicked myself again.
Yeah.
And so now I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe we should have maybe one for sporting achievement and maybe one for something that's been done in our sport.
Well, again, we can expand it beyond in due course. And if we stick with one and we do go with a female, it's a big deal rather than having we got a male and a female, who's better. Andrew McIrvin, are you okay?
I mean, I think basically the ladies statistically have a battle. When you just look at your list of nominations, there's, I think, 3 women and the rest are fellas. And I just think it would be nice. Andrew Pindar and I are very much on the same wavelength of this, of trying every way we can think of trying to encourage more women into sport. You know, they do find, when you look at it optimist level, you've got boys and girls equal. And then just as you go up into the lasers and beyond, it suddenly drops away and it's far more boys than girls. And we've got to try and make that gender balance better. So I feel that it would be nice. This isn't the Rolex Yachtsman of the Year. This is our own little thing. And it would be nice to have a prize for both. But I wouldn't fight to the death on it. But that's my feeling.
Okay. Well, let's go with one. We can always go with more.
If it gets down to the decision making and the committee decides that
can't decide between one male and one female,
or even maybe
it's true, fair enough.
That might be a good way of solving.
2 men.
And the other point, Andrew, is that if in fact if a woman is selected this year, I mean, that elevates women in a much bigger way than just saying, we got a woman on here because we just felt it important to have a woman and not just a.
I think the big problem is that our sport's so wide. So, you pick somebody who does a single-handed around the world and you're comparing that with people who've done a sort of whole multiple of different events and sponsored and built different teams. And they're sort of not remotely comparable.
Fair enough. But again, what we're talking about, Andrew, is not who's won a big yacht race, or necessarily, they may have, but somebody who's made a huge impact on the sailing scene on the world, rather than and that could be the winner of the Sunfish World's sportsmanship trophy in Peru, because the person saved somebody's life and made a huge media. I hesitate to say this, but I suspect media impact is going to be one of the big criteria.
Yeah,
in all this, somebody that's really made a big. But Alan Long agrees with you. And Pedro Foiling Sailor's making a funny comment. Ronstadt watches are the best for the visually challenged. Rolex watches are what you give the person who has everything. Okay, Pip Hare. Bob Walker wants to nominate Pip Hare. I'm going to add her to the list.
Yes, indeed. She's done spectacular.
And she has made quite a...
Yes, she has.
A splash, an impact. I think a lot of people are following her trials and tribulations.
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 Yes.
That's why we have a Stanford grad over here, along with David James, to keep me on the straight and narrow. Okay. John Emmett, I'm going to go specifically to what he said because he couldn't be on. He says, Handel Stodel, the parasailing manager at World Sailing. Stodel's role is to promote and develop parasailing to increase participation and secure reinstatement to the Paralympic Games. She also works with international stakeholders, including athletes, coaches, governing bodies, and equipment manufacturers. Stodel is a 4-time Paralympian for GBR. She is passionate about parasailing and believes in the sport's potential to empower people with disabilities. Stodel's goals include making sailing more inclusive and removing barriers to participation. She also aims to build a strong foundation for the sport to grow and serve the needs of parasailers worldwide. Obviously, a very talented person, and delighted to have that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think the point, you do need to make a point about her, because Magnus has taken up her course, and I know her well. And that is the fact that she is really on her own in World Sailing. World Sailing have given her that job and given her very, very little backing, such that she's, deeply stressed by the whole business. And there's a feeling that World Sailing is ticking a box, but not really behind her. And she's very on her own. And, she's a really good person. And I think that the world behind World Sailing needs to give World Sailing an enormous kick, which good old Magnus is doing, but it needs to be spread more widely.
Yeah, and on the other hand, he nominated Grant Dalton.
Yeah, I know. That was yeah. And who's he been working for the last 3 years? It's perhaps not one of his subtlest moves. Not that Magnus has ever been subtle. He's
Magnus, the Magnificent. I'm too bad he's got a bad internet connection. He wrote this morning
playing golf in Africa. Or something.
He's taking his whole family on an African safari, and he says, "I don't have a good internet connection." It's too bad. Okay, so now, gang, we've got a long. Clark Chapin, who was on here, he had to go to our little church where our families have been going for years. My late great mother and my sister and so on, for their Christmas Eve, and others are under pressure here to get off to attend the family things, especially those of you in Europe. And it's Christmas morning in Australia and New Zealand, and
half the world.
That side of the world. How do you want to proceed from here? Should we have another Zoom call? We have a show on Friday. We could do this again, but I have a feeling you all could think about it, noodle it, send in a name. Do you want to? But I want people to say why they think these various nominees ought to, your nominee ought to be supported. I mean, Bernard Schopfer, for example, has nominated Charles Caudrelier. Claire has nominated Doug DeVos, who was the co-leader of American Magic. I was going to say Young America, Claire, but Young American Magic. John Lamberts Van Buren, who's not on, is supporting Merritt Baumeister. Rob Fry, Magnus Wheatley, and others are supporting Grant Dalton. Alistair Murray, who I put that in, the first ever female PRO at the Olympics, Pinar Koskuner Genk. She's Turkish, I believe. I don't think I've come close to pronouncing that correctly. But again, this is not a service or a participation award, I don't think. Tell me if I'm wrong, gang. But it's an award that is about a major impact. Time Magazine's Person of the Year, a positive major impact on the sport. And Alistair, with all due respect, I think this gal is something special, no doubt. First ever female PRO at the Olympics. But I have a hard time myself thinking about the impact that she's actually. We have a lot of female PROs. We have female PROs in the 1984 Olympics. So I don't know how this gal was. She's maybe the first female PRO and certified and dignified and bona fide. But Helen Bedford from the Mission Bay Yacht Club in 1984 was the course chair of the Alpha or Bravo course at the 84 Olympics. I know for sure because I was the technical director for those games. So, but again, it's not for me. Tell me if I'm wrong, gang, but it's not for me so much a service award as it's somebody who has made a major positive impact. Claire?
I could not agree more. It's not about an appointment. It's about self initiated and passion about the sport and put their heart and soul and whatever else into the sport and made an impact, not having achieved a position.
Ed?
I think Maria, who runs the RC44s and the whole Super Series as PRO and has done for a number of years, that frankly to me is a much bigger deal than running one small fleet in the Olympics.
Mhm.
Without
What is her?
That was
Going
directed by
down.
World Sailing anyway.
You know,
What is her
At
name?
50%.
Maria.
Yeah,
Starts with a T, right?
Torrijos.
Torrijos. That's
Maria.
right.
I worked with her on the Super Series, Maria Torrijos.
Torrijos
Yeah,
de
she's brilliant.
something or another. She is Spanish. She's Spanish, and she is fabulous. She was involved in both in the 2010 Cup, 2007 and 2010 Cup, which is how she got involved in race management. Was helping Luigi, helping that
Mhm.
get.
That's right. It's with Luigi.
She's
pretty
amazing.
unruffable against an incredibly tough bunch of guys.
Mhm.
I think that's, you're dealing, compared with the Olympics, you're dealing with this huge bunch of super heavy duty professionals
Mm.
who've been doing it for a long time, and she handles all that incredibly well.
Okay,
She
well,
really does.
we're an
She's
hour
remarkable.
and 21 minutes into this show, and I don't want to spend too much more time on this because, again, everybody's got to go do their Christmas stuff, and we can spend some more time on it on this Friday's show, as well as.
Nearly finished the bottle.
Does anyone want to
It's
put
only a half bottle.
half bottle?
Yeah.
Does anybody want to put in a pitch for anyone else on our list whom we've not already discussed at some length?
We haven't discussed Ben.
Please.
Well, I think Ben deserves it massively because this guy, Peter Burling, fantastic, won the cup, but look at what Ben has done. He's managed to run the team against unbelievable odds. I remember Brad Butterworth telling me the campaign before last, there's no way he cannot possibly drive the boat and run the team. And in fact, if anything, the pressure must have been much, much worse. Not only that, he carried the Athena program for the girls and the youth program when Ratcliffe basically backed out. He rushed around and managed to get the funding for that. And the enormous stress of the way he always does. I mean, he performs very well under stress, but to get that boat going, which it certainly wasn't going at the start of the campaign, and get through and to win the Louis Vuitton Cup, that was superhuman. And I just think the way he performs under stress and the way he managed an enormous team and a whole campaign is absolutely superhuman. And I would definitely, I would have difficulty. I know I've nominated 3 people now, all of whom I have colossal respect for. But he really does need to be up there and considered.
Well, I think too, if the panel would please think about what else. We can't just drop all these nominees. We're going to choose somebody, some way, somehow, or choose somebody as our person of the year. But then we've got to have more than honorable mention for a few of these people who have done astonishingly cool things. So if the panel, you're nodding your head,
Yeah.
yes, Julia. If the panel would also think about that, I think we need to also have the short list and maybe the longer list. Maybe we're onto something here that is going to mean way more than we think when we think here in our little FOSI world.
Yeah. I mean,
Can I just put in? Sorry,
Go ahead.
But I did put in Hap because Hap was the very much the other half of the American Magic. But you've got to look at Hap taking a long view, not just what he did for American Magic last time and this time, which is okay, having a large checkbook and putting a lot in and having a fantastic team. But he's got the most incredibly loyal team. And that is more for his maxi sailing and his maxi 72, where he's developed Bellamenti over the years. He's kept the most fantastic team of sailors together. He's the sort of guy who paid them all through COVID when they weren't racing. They are They are a family. They are fantastically loyal to him. He came over. He only did one event this year in Europe, and he won the IMA European Maxis in Sorrento. He drives the boat himself. He's a proper sailor, and as well as being just a massive benefactor to the sport. I'm sure Claire will back me up on that.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of Haps.
He's a really nice guy too. I mean, I want to really time for him.
He's a
Thank
great
you,
person.
Doctor. Claire, while we've got you on the screen, how about Doug DeVos?
Well, I nominated Doug for many of the same reasons that Andrew just delineated about Hap. But Doug has impacted the sport in so many ways. He owns the TP52 Super Series. He's a TP52 sailor himself. He's a very accomplished winning sailor. That series has been stellar in terms of the management of the whole series. And in addition to that, he's instrumental in the development of the Great Lakes TP52 fleet. So, which is more on the Corinthian side, as I understand it. And obviously his dedication and commitment to the New York Yacht Club American Magic, the last two campaigns, and presumably the next one we'll know soon. That's a huge commitment. He is fiercely loyal to the team and to the America's Cup effort. He is working tirelessly behind the scenes to help to move the needle on the next management and delivery of the next cup. Was that
That was well said. It was well put, Claire. Well done.
Yes.
Okay.
That was well done.
And he is also an enormous supporter of Olympic sailing through the through America One. And he's not just a guy who's sitting back there and writing checks. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty. He gets in there and he really works hard at this. And he is a real leader and pulls people together who don't necessarily get along so well. And he really makes them work together to a common goal. And so I just think he's and in addition, he is creating the American Magic High Performance program down in Pensacola, the Sailing High Performance Center, which is a developmental program for young people who want to be in these high performance boats.
Yeah,
So,
I think Commodore Tom
very
Pace,
involved.
who's the past Commodore of Pensacola Yacht Club, is on, I believe. He was earlier. And Mark Holland is suggesting just now, as none of these are poor nominees, rank all of them and then name FOSI Sodis, Sailor of the Year, as the top vote getter. And we're going to put them all together and vote. Well, that is that's going to be tough, but we could. Stingray is saying BA. Ben Ainsley is also super good with Georgia. The two of them are really impressive. Andrew Dolly DeVola's on here. Ted Ryman agrees with you, Andrew McIrvin. Bill Canfield. Hello, Mr. President. Past president of the Virgin Islands Sailing Association, Bill Canfield, Taylor's dad, is saying Dawn Riley is amazing at Oak Cliff. Andrew, back to Dolly DeVola, he's saying the underdogs that do good things for the sport you usually don't hear about in the mainstream, and they are the unsung heroes of any sport, which is why a lot of people I know like the idea of just yacht club volunteers in general, race committee volunteers, yacht club volunteers. Pedro Foiling Sailor is then finally making the observation here that Andrew McIrvin appears to have a magical glass of red wine. No matter how much he drinks, the glass stays full.
I got my bottle as well.
That's lovely.
Okay, gang. Ed, who do you want to pitch for somebody, Ed, since you're on?
I lean toward the yacht club volunteers and Don Riley
Okay.
because they're touching more people's lives and bringing people into sailing. If people, when they go to the yacht club, if they feel warm and they feel invited, and there's the attitude at the clubs is come on and go sailing, jump on a boat, volunteer, they're reaching more people who are getting into the sport. That's my opinion.
Okay, thanks for that.
Good
By the
point.
way, any of you looking at the matrix, the upper left corner is what I am sending back to the panelists as the show. So they're seeing a slide in the corner live of what we're doing here on the show. So don't be confused by that. Andrew, I think you've done your thing, at least for the moment. Christopher Gillingham, who are you thinking of supporting?
I'm I know I said Jimmy Spithill, but I'm really quite taken with Cole Brower. And for what I understand, she was a teacher, I believe, an academic teacher in a school. And there's been the first American woman to race around the world. And she's now doing more with other sailing teams as well. So very happy to support her. Also, having a member of yacht clubs and as a yacht club member, it's the volunteers as well. So narrowing it down to Cole and to the volunteers, what helps makes our sport.
Graham?
Okay, Tom. This is where I get very sad because I love Ben Ainsley. He's a fantastic bloke, but I don't think he'd want an award for something he hasn't achieved. And I think the one thing that drives him in this world is the fight for that award. So I'm not going to vote for Ben, and that's something that's goes well against me. So I'm gonna do the worst thing I could possibly do for me, and that's look at Pete Burling. I think that man has done so much in sailing that we don't know about as much. He's got a charity in New Zealand that looks into technology in marine science and conservation. I mean, we all know him for his sailing, but he does that too. I mean, that's absolutely amazing. I found this out recently when I did a bit of a dig on him, and I found that this was founded by him a few years back, and it's really it's really moving in New Zealand. It's really working for New Zealand because they're cleaning their oceans and they're finding different ways of conserving their wildlife and doing all that sort of thing as well as being a fantastic bloody good sailor. I mean, yeah, I mean, I've got to say Pete, but I can't say Ben because I know Ben thrives on the fact that he has to win something and he has to have something to focus on. And if he wasn't on the boat, maybe for the next go, I would probably say, yeah, that would be a good thing. Vote for him. But if he does do the thing that no one really wants him to do, is go and carry on that boat, I think that would be the wrong thing to vote for. I mean, that's just my opinion. Take it as you will. But there are so many people out there, and as we've all said, the people at club level, the guys that cut the grass, make sure that the car park's clean, the people that put the food out and run the bar, the people that do all those things for our sport. I mean, from the bottom up, from lifting out to putting in. I mean, they're there. I mean, those are the unsung heroes. And maybe if we do have a second award, it would be for something not just as a singular person, but for an action. And well, that's about it for me, really.
Okay. Excellent. Julia?
I think it would be a grand statement if the final decision were to be the volunteers.
You're liking that.
Yeah, and it is true that they make it happen, and it's true in other sports too. But right now, I can't think of one.
Is it a bit of a cop out because it's too hard to choose one person?
No, I think it lays the groundwork for what comes next.
Hmm.
And there it is. Is this to focus within the sport, or to bring attention from outside the sport?
Again, it would vary probably from year to year. Somebody brings a huge amount of attention in the sport. We might say that person is person of the year, and somebody else who attracts a lot of attention, like the Telegraph article and the whole Pip Hare thing,
Right.
or the Cole Brower thing, which probably did more for the sport in this country because of her personality, her regular little videos on Twitter and TikTok and every place else, Instagram. She did she had more network television coverage than anything else by far. And of course, we also have to remember it's easy to forget about what happened early in the year versus what maybe just happened in Marseille or in Barcelona just now. So I lean a little bit toward her because of what at the time I wasn't following her. I wasn't a fan of her, but all of you got me focused and turned on about that. I'll tell you, one group you could talk about is how smart and how cool the FOSI are.
Yes.
Because there are such, not to blow smoke up any of your skirts, but the responsible opinions of all these people, whether here or in the chat, and the good ideas, the thoughtful ideas that are coming through, you don't see this in very many other aspects in the sport, except maybe in a given class annual general meeting or at a yacht club annual general meeting. But it's nice to see. Andrew Pindar, sorry to be late to be joining. The Royal Mail has just been sold and delivery schedule from Santa has gone a bit haywire. Is that true? Do they sell the Royal Mail? They privatize it?
Yep. To a check.
Really?
To a Czech?
Yep.
As in the Czech Republic?
Oh.
Yep.
Well, I think
Wow.
I think Trump might do the same thing here, Andrew. I think he might sell our U.S. postal system. I mean, he can't because it's not really part of the federal government per se. The federal government underwrites it because they lose so much money. Jonathan Frank agrees with Julia. Well said, Julia. Andrew, as Idali Devola is saying, I'm loving this discussion. It shouldn't be just about who won the big events, but who does good things for our sport. Exactly. Baton Rouge is back and forth. We're not your interests. You're not nominating your interests. You're nominating the best person. Good point. Ed Worley is liking the volunteer thing some more. He says, everybody, every regatta, every club depends on the volunteers. And man, oh man, Dawn Riley, strong support. Chris Odorowski, hello, Commodore Odorowski. There's a good friend of Claire's and mine. Fellow New York Yacht Club member and Beach Street Yacht Club member. Agreed, Dawn Riley deserves this for how she brings more sailors into the sport of sailboat racing.
She does.
Okay, how do we proceed from here? Any more discussion from anybody about any of these nominees?
We've made it a lot more complicated.
Which is great. Which is
but
great.
A very good discussion.
I really don't want to have an election per se, and here's why, gang. If we put this out and ask the FOSI to send everybody who watches the show, anybody who's we'll end up with what U.S. Sailing has with their votes for leadership, and it ends up being like we call it a 7th grade student council election. It ends up being a popularity contest, and people start, hey, vote, write in your votes because we will. I'd rather have this panel. And if there's anyone who's not on the panel, and not just this group, but the group to whom I send invitations, the people who are the super FOSI, in other words, have been on the show a lot, regulars who are on the show, who are watching the show a lot. And by the way, if there's anybody, we got 20 minutes here left before our 2-hour show, nominal 2-hour show ends. If anybody wants badly to get on here and have a word, there is the Zoom code, meeting ID and passcode, and join the group who are so smart and so worldly. I don't know a better word, Julia, than worldly.
Claire?
I have a suggestion.
Please.
Might it make sense to go back to the original criterion that Alistair Murray charged us with at the beginning of the show or the beginning of the discussion, and see how many of these people sort of, fit those markers and check those boxes, and maybe that would help us narrow down.
Okay, good idea. I've just asked the control room. We got a staff of 50 here. Staff of 50 here in the control room, and they brought that slide right up. There it is.
You have great staff there.
Someone of good character, an exemplary example. Someone who has done them. I think everybody we've talked about fits criteria 1, right?
Yeah.
Someone who has done the most, and I like this one a lot, who has done the most or done a lot to raise the profile of, and I think this is yacht racing. If we get it to sailing, then we're going to get way too broad. I'm talking about yacht racing. That's what this show has always been about. And I'd like us to really stick to yacht racing, if you all agree. Someone who has worked the hardest for sailing's benefit. The hardest is, it's hard to decide that, but I think all these people so far someone who's achieved the most challenging goals. Yacht Club volunteers maybe wouldn't fit that, Claire, so much. If that really is one of our, Cole Brower has has met a goal. Has Ben Ainsley, he didn't win the cup, but he certainly got his team on the water, got to the finals, which is the best the Brits have done since there were single challenges. I don't think the Brits ever got to the finals when there were multiple challengers since 1970. But to Graham's point, he really didn't meet his goal, I suppose.
But I think him winning the Louis Vuitton Cup was extraordinary, especially given where they started earlier in the summer.
I agree.
Just
I
extraordinary.
think everybody, I'm seeing people nodding their heads again. Ed Worley and Andrew
Everyone wrote
McIrvin.
them off. Honestly, they didn't. No one thought they would get as far as they
and me included. And I'm the one, Claire, as you know, who said he ought to get off the boat. And by the way, I may have been right.
Yeah,
I may have been right. They may have done even better if he had gotten off the boat and gotten those two guys going. But that's a whole nother issue.
And it's a long discussion.
2020 in the rearview mirror.
Exactly. And I'm not gonna weigh in on that again, although I just did. Someone who is a trailblazer who has achieved a first. Okay, we could probably go back and measure that. Again, that makes Yacht Club volunteers hard to go with. It makes Ben, and maybe not quite so much. It makes Claire.
Larry Ellison.
You got Ellison then, and even Coots, someone who has done the most. Yeah, and to be fair, you've got Pete Burling because of his trailblazing, what he has done, not just with a cup. Mark Holland has got another nomination. He says, now I'm thinking that Gary Jobson is one that fits all the blocks, even now with the America's Cup Museum of Sailing in Newport, Rhode Island. So I'm going to add Gary to the list. Someone who has done the most to represent a worthy cause or furthered the cause of women. Okay, this is I won't call this the DEI clause, but it is important that we do recognize this, a worthy cause or furthered the cause of women, youth, people with disabilities, ethnic groups, etc. Okay. Claire, who do you want to you want to put your what out on the table here?
For my choice of who I stick with Doug DeVos.
You stick with Doug, okay?
Yeah.
He meets the criteria.
He does.
In many ways.
Yeah. Tom Pace has weighed in. The World Sailing Regatta Series supported by Helly Hansen. Yeah, I don't want to get into commercial stuff, Tom, too much. Dave Reed from Yacht Racing, what's the name of that magazine now, Sailing World, meets the judging criteria the events encompass. And it's again, I think one thing that we haven't said in here, gang, Julie, I think you would agree with this. We also haven't said on a global basis. I think if we get too narrow-minded in one country, this country or that country, I think we're really talking about who's made a huge impact on our beloved sport.
We're talking of sport.
Of our beloved sport of yacht racing, as much as possible across the globe, not just in, somebody in one country or another. Do you all agree with that? That we really try to apply a worldwide. Okay, now I also will say on one other thing. I don't want to rush this because I think it's important what we're doing. I think it's important to have the discussion. And while I don't want to drag this out through, the Ides of March or something, I don't want to rush this because we've got some good new additional nominees and we ought to have some full and frank discussion, I think. What do you all think about that?
I believe what we do now is the basis of maybe what we do in the future. I mean, if we start off right, we carry on right.
Exactly.
Well, the Ides of March isn't a bad idea.
Well, again, if we are focusing on 2024, is that the intention? I'm assuming that, but
it is.
It is.
It was.
And then we don't want it to get stale. I think it's timely, and I love the idea of announcing it on New Year's Eve. But maybe we don't have the time for that.
Okay, let's do this rather than belaboring it here. Claire and the rest of you, thank you. Let's now take this offline, and I will Claire, watch your Facebook messaging because I did last night. I did Ed Worley singly And the Zoomers, I think the guys that had been on when we did the watch parties, those I started doing them, and I said, God, I'm going to be here all night sending messages. So I'm going to try to figure out how to do a group grope on Facebook messaging. And I sent to Ed and to, I can't remember, Graham Sweeney, and I think to Gordon Smith, who wants to be a part of this, by the way, but he's got family obligations.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sent individually to them. Then I sent out the group grope to all of you because I figured out how to do that at 11:30 last night.
Mhm.
And I will send another note out and keep that thread. Don't lose that thread so that if you put a note in, everybody, it'll drive everybody nuts, but put a note in and everybody on the panel, so to speak, can see what you've said.
Okay.
And Andrew Pindar must have had a glass or two. He's nominating Brute. At 2 Brute. Pretty sure he will come good in the middle of March.
That's an alien again.
Huh?
Well, he's gone Roman.
Yeah, well, you Brits better get him under control. You better, after this, tomorrow during Christmas Day or on Boxing Day, call
He's from Yorkshire. There's no possibility.
We'll call Pindar up and get him. Okay, because people want to go, I will let you go to your Christmas Eve. Let's do that. Let's take it offline. We'll figure out how to do it from here. We can discuss it further. I don't want to do it tomorrow, Julia, on our, I think tomorrow we're going to be too busy watching the yacht race.
Right.
And again, so let's not do that. Let's then take it Friday. We got Friday's show, and we'll discuss it again. In the meantime, send me your suggestions on how you want to handle this on Friday. Because a week from today, I agree with Claire. I'd like to be able to name who we think is the 2024 Sailing Illustrated Yachts person of the year.
No kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
Got to do it. And I'm going to go, but thank you. Just happy Christmas to you all. Lovely to see you all in real time. And see you what was the middle of the night for the Hobart.
Yeah, it's 0:30 for you in London.
Merry Christmas, Andrew.
Good. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Thanks
Anybody
very much.
else on the panel want to weigh in? Are you okay with doing this now offline?
I'm good with that. I'm fine with
Christopher, are you good with that?
Good with that. And I wish everyone a happy Christmas and enjoy.
Graham?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Ed?
That sounds great. Everybody have a Merry Christmas.
How about everybody in the comments? Chris Odorowski, Julia, you look splendid. Merry Christmas, Tom, and everyone. Time to start Christmas. Everyone wants to go Christmas shopping. Okay, well, let's wrap this up. Thank you, panel. Thank you very much indeed. And I'm going to go back here now and wrap this show up. And we are going to skip forward a few slides here quickly. I've got this day in history that I've got to show, Julia.
Yes. Okay.
I got to show this.
All right.
I mean, do you know what happened on this day in history, the 24th of December?
But what year? Oh, 1777.
1777. He's been a regular on here. Somebody even nominated him. Julia, somebody even nominated him today.
Oh, yes.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's Captain James Cook.
Aha.
What did he do on this day in 1777, 2 years before he died? Here's your first clue.
Discovered. Oh gosh, I don't know.
Anybody know? Anybody know in the chat? Blake Middleton. Ding, ding, ding.
Oh, Christmas
He's
Island.
got it. Blake Middleton.
Oh yes.
Huh?
Yeah. Look, everybody does.
Cook. Christmas Island, but not the Christmas Island you thought. It's not the Christmas Island you thought. At least not the Christmas Island I thought. People are now going onto the web. They know what website to use. This is a 2002 photo from the NASA space station.
Mm-hmm.
And that is known now these days. It was originally also called Christmas Island. There are a couple of Christmas. It's now Christmas Atoll. That's Kiritimati.
Kiritimati.
Kiritimati. Have you been there, Julia? Well, you've been everywhere else.
I've been by it.
Christmas Island is owned by Australia, but not this Christmas Island, this Christmas Atoll. This is a coral island in the Northern Line Islands, part of Kiribati in the West Central Pacific Ocean, not in the Indian Ocean. The other Christmas Island's in the Indian Ocean. It is the largest island of purely coral formation in the world, having a circumference of about 160 kilometers. So there is where it is in the Pacific Ocean, just north, barely north of the equator. And this atoll, not to be confused with the other Christmas Island, which is a territory of Australia, specifically Western Australia, out there to the north and west of Oz. So just FYI, that is the island, that Christmas Island. And I was all confused. I had to redo this segment this morning because I thought this was the island we were talking about, but it's not. That's the one where you see on the media about the red crabs that literally walk across the island, literally, to migrate onto the sea at around about Christmas time. Starts in November on the Christmas Island that is owned by Australia. But it was on this day that Captain Cook went to the other Christmas atoll in 1777. It was the first European to visit it. Now, what more famously happened, for extra credit, Julia, or anybody in the chat, what more famously happened on that island in the 50s? Here is your
1850s,
no,
1750s.
the 1950s. Sorry, 1950. There's your first and only clue.
The atom bomb.
Which one?
Nuclear tests.
Which nuclear tests?
Oh,
2.
Carry on. Who's saying that? Is that you, Graham?
Yeah. The Brits did one, didn't they?
Exactly.
There?
Ding, 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 ding. Well done. The Americans did too, by the way. But the Brits exploded.
A canoeist with 3 arms who was out there.
What? Say again?
I had a canoeist instructor who had all but 3 arms. He trained me. He was the fastest canoeist I ever knew. You know, really could go fast with those 3 arms.
But he didn't get 3 arms from the nuclear explosion, did he?
With my done. He never said.
I thought that's where you're going. But yes, this was a hydrogen bomb. It was the Brits' biggest bomb ever. The classic shape of the mushroom cloud rises above Christmas Atoll, not the island. Flowing the Grapple Y test. Your Grapple, apparently, what the Brit tests were all called. Where's some of our other experts on nuclear testing? And on 28th of April, 1958, a yield of 3 megatons. It was Britain's biggest nuclear explosion.
It's beautiful.
Well, okay, so there's the extra credit. There's what happened on this day in history. I have this last leg to Gloucester, and I've got some videos. I'm going to not play the first one because they're too long. Yeah, John Spangos is correct. The tests were on Malden Island, although they did one right off the end of that Christmas atoll. This is how I prepare the show, Julia. I look at this trivia and try to separate the wheat from the chaff. John Spangos has been there. He's been there. And that was the staging ground for the tests that were in and around that island. So I didn't get that granular. But, John, I think you are right. In the last leg, back to the last leg, I've got videos about tomorrow's start and the race of the Rolex Sydney to Hobart yacht race. I'm not going to play the first one in the last leg. I just show you the picture. You all know. And I'm going to skip. I think I can skip through this video. It's the one we've played before. But just to remind you, the Rolex Sydney to Hobart Yacht Race watch party tomorrow, our Christmas Day, your Boxing Day down under, will start a half an hour before the race starts at 16:30 Pacific, and so on. Here is this video. I won't play it. It's the Rolex video about the yacht race. It will start, and then it will fart and stammer, and I'm just going to click through it and get to the second one, because the second video is a FOSI, one of the coolest sailors in the world, who took a leading role in the Australian Women's America's Cup team. And here she is, Olivia Price.
Hi, I'm Olivia Price, Olympic silver medalist and skipper of the Australian Women's America's Cup team. And I'm going to tell you 3 things that you may not already know about the Rolex Sydney Hobart. The first thing is that this race is won by seconds. Last year, it was down to 51 seconds between first and second for line honours, between Andrew Comanche and Law Connect. In the history of the race, there are records aplenty. 6 yachts have won both line honours and overall in the same race. 12 have won multiple line honours wins, and 11 have won multiple overall wins on handicap. The Rolex Sydney Hobart is notorious for its challenges, and having an optimised sail package for all conditions is key to success. Now, the North Sails team works behind the scenes with all the yachts independently to ensure that their sail packages are optimised for any conditions that can be expected. A typical 40-footer would take 5 jibs and 5 spinnakers to range across all those conditions. But when you compare that to Comanche, a 100-foot super maxi, they take 6 jibs and just 1 spinnaker because their apparent wind is so far forward and they are sailing so fast that they only need 1 sail to combat all those conditions. Stay up to date on all the Rolex Sydney Hobart news on the North Sails channels as the race starts on Boxing Day.
So she's doing this for North Sails. And
That's great.
It's great. This show is not brought to you by North Sails, but I like their video. And by the way, I will show you this other. It's only a 40-second video. But the race tomorrow, which I'll have by VPN and so on, the forecast is good for a fast, Dolly DeVola is telling us, yes, for a fast Sydney Hobart and a beautiful Sydney day for the start. And by the way, as I was about to say, thanks for that, Andrew, Dolly DeVola, it's going to be on the 9 network instead of the Color 7 network. And here's
For
that promotion.
almost 80 years, a battle of wind and waves has ruled
been pretty wild.
Our Southern Ocean. Now, the epic race has a new home. 112 teams, 628 nautical miles of pure adventure. Who will conquer?
Extraordinary scene.
The Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. Boxing Day on 9 and 9 Now.
And on Sailing Illustrated.
Yeah.
Tomorrow at 4:30. Did I say 5:30? It's at 4:30 our time. 16:30.
Yeah.
I sat here late at night last night doing the calculations of the time zones. It's at 16:30, 4:30 our time. The race starts at 5. And that was a nice shot, Alex Kent, of Lee Lewis, Chris Lewis, who is a St. Francis member, who is in the race, sailing in the race. And there's a ton. Go to the Rolex page. Better yet, go to the CYCA page. There is a ton of good video for this race, which, again, as you all know, starts tomorrow. Tomorrow. Yeah, I've got the right time on this lower third. 16:30 Pacific. 0030, 30 minutes after midnight UTC, which is London time this time of year when they're not on daylight time. And that's 11:30 when we will go live, 11:30 in Australia. And the race starts at noon. And remember, back there on that picture, you can see they have 4 or 5, I can't remember, starting lines. There's a starting line, a starting line, a starting line, and I think there's 4 here in this picture. There may be another starting line too for a different class of boats. They all start at once. And you remember when we had that protest the other 2, 3, 4 years ago? It was pre-pandemic. Maybe it was longer than that. And we had the protest in the harbor as they were coming out before they got to North Head. And we had the protest, the mock protest hearing with Clark Chapin and Dick Anderson, and decided it. The judges were watching before they rendered their decision.
Yes.
I hope that doesn't happen. Blake Middleton's great mate, Phil Yeomans, has long been the race officer calling the start line on the second line at Sydney Hobart.
Oh, that's good to know.
This line for the medium large boats, not the biggest boats, which start right out here first and foremost. Brilliant job that they do. That is tomorrow. And we will cover that live. I hope you can join. By the way, I'll probably do a Zoom. Graham, should we do a Zoom, Ed? Should we do a Zoom? Do you guys want to come on and watch it by Zoom and chit and chat like we did for the watch parties?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so I'll put a Zoom up. And Fog Machine says Channel 9 has the USA geo-blocked, maybe on the CYCA YouTube channel. Yeah, don't worry. I will get it. Fog Machine, a.k.a. Lance Burke. And thank you for reminding. Jonathan Frank has got to fly. I hope he's literally not having to fly over the holiday, but if he has got to go get in his 777 and fly it somewhere. He's probably making a lot of money, Julie. He's probably making a lot of overtime, holiday overtime pay as a United Airlines captain.
I think he's probably keeping a regular schedule.
He is. He's a busy boy and
Yeah.
a renaissance man. We're to the final, the D block, Julia. Whiskey, Tango, Foxtrot. And by the way, this was sent in. Look at this. And if we ever lose your finger wag, or if we think you don't give a finger wag that's deserved,
Yes.
we now have one on tape,
Oh,
or at least digitally.
yes.
Huh?
That's good.
That came from my daughter this morning.
Really?
That came from Meg.
Terrific.
How do you like that?
I like it.
Okay, we have some more, Julia. You may want to wait. Not this one. This one's clean. I've had it, Doc. I've come all the way from Alabama with this dang thing on my knee. Oh, Susanna, won't you cry for her? I guess that's what that's from.
Yep.
But how would a bloody Aussie know that song? Greg Phillips sent that. Thought it was very clever and apropos what we do here on this show. This one,
Old Tom.
Old Tom. Yes, look at Sweeney. Look at his face light up when he saw this. He sent this to me, or Ryman sent it, but Sweeney must have seen it. Did you send it? I think they both sent it. It must be on some page that they're both subscribed to.
Mm.
The Brits have named a beer after you, better than a knighthood. Is that right, Graham? Better than a knighthood?
I don't know. I'd take the knighthood.
Did you send that, or did Ryman send that?
Oh, it's got to be Ryman.
Yeah, I think he did send it. But I got, I get these things sometimes from several people, which is always fun. Now this one, Julia.
Yes.
This one is clever. Bannero sent this. And it really deserves, we had more time, we could do a caption contest. But those are, you know what those handles are, those red handles.
The climbing ones.
Yeah, they're for like rock climbing or cliff
right.
climbing, or now in the gyms, they have these things in the gym where you go in there and climb, and they have in the Olympics. This is a sport. What was the name of this sport in the Olympics, Graham?
I don't know, but you've got to be a kind of a giraffe to use it.
A bit of a giraffe. Ed Worley, do you remember the name of that sport?
Speed climbing.
Speed climbing, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that came from Bannero. I would not want to have to climb up there and use the urinal. Alex Ken is checking in from Middleton, Wisconsin, overlooking Lake Mendota from the family house. Nice, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ryman did send that in, that previous one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I like that cartoon. No caption contest. Julia, thanks to Hugh Hefner, an entire generation learned to read magazines with one hand.
Uh-oh.
Now, where does Clayton Embley? Be careful, he sends your booze. He sends that bourbon cream for your coffee. That was pretty clever, wasn't it? Sweeney's laughing. No? Oh, he's giving the finger wag. He gave the finger wag. Worley liked it too. I'm glad Claire's gone. I'm glad Claire did not. Vice Commodore Harrington did not see that.
Yes.
She probably would not have been amused, Julia.
No.
Okay, finally, maybe second to last. I did not know this, and tell me if this is true. If you are having a bad day, just remember that the airport in Vienna has a counter for people who thought they were flying to Australia, not to Austria.
Yes.
Is that true?
I don't know if they have a counter, but they do have a huge number of passengers who confuse that.
Only stupid Americans.
No, I mean, it's a big.
A European would not fly to Austria thinking they were going to Australia. Would they?
A U.S.?
An American might, but bloody Croutonic American. I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, well, that was sent by Sangmeister. And finally, in the spirit of the season, I thought, I had this up on my Facebook page the other day. They want to work from home, Santa. Big problem in this country is figuring out how they can do that in all the open space. That was pushed through by Alfredo Partible, born in the Philippines and living now here in the USA. And Julie, that gets us to the finish line. And we're grateful for everybody. Just a reminder that our Yacht Racing Person of the Year, we will continue discussing this on Friday, it sounds like. We're going to discuss it offline. Today was our panel discussion on our regular 1300 show. Tomorrow, 25th and 26th, we will do the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race Watch Party regular show on Friday. And then next Tuesday evening in black tie, Julia.
Okay.
Right? Well, you wore your big
Oh, I'm ready.
winter stole.
Yeah.
You look marvelous, darling.
It feels good too.
So next Tuesday night, we'll do our New Year's Eve black tie regular show. You know, when I lean forward, I go out of the shotgun microphone range. I better stop doing that. Next Tuesday evening, or next Tuesday afternoon, our time, a regular 1300 show. And Julia, you like to say?
Yes, please like, follow, and share. This will be fine.
Comments are welcome. Even a replay, those of you who are watching this, we had a big crowd on here watching. I saw the numbers.
Oh, good.
And thank you to all of you who did join us. Thank you to all of you who support us, especially the super FOSI who watch regularly, who come on the show. And by the way, put in the comment, was the audio, we have a new audio setup here. We've got a new fancy audio mixer, digital mixer. We've had one before, but this is much higher quality. And I hope the audio was good. If not, let me know, and we'll make any adjustments going forward. Thank you for joining as a patron, those of you who do that. And thanks to all of you for your support and for the media that has been sent through, images, videos, and of course, audio for today's show. Julia, final thoughts.
I just saw Carlos Avi's Feliz Natal.
Feliz Navidad. Feliz Natal.
Yes.
Happy holidays. Thank you, Gordon Smith, for joining us. We talked about Gordon Joe Holtzman. Great job you're doing, Joe, on your knee. Keep doing that. Rehab on your knee. Bravo Zulu to you. Thanks, Commodore Otto Rowski, better known as Otto, Blake, Tom Pace, and all the rest of you. Thank you very much indeed. Hope to see you tomorrow at 4:30 our time. That's plenty loud, isn't it?
Yes.
At 4:30 tomorrow. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao.